Okay, so if you can just take your seats again or just mill around the back a little bit more quietly and we'll kick off the next session. So I'll introduce Jim St. Ledger and I'll let him to introduce the rest of the governing board and kick off this part of the discussion.
Good morning. No response. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Jim.
All right. So it's actually not even morning anymore, but depending on what time zone you're in. Do we have a competition for who traveled the farthest? I know we have a couple people from China here. How many people are here from the West Coast?
Of Ireland?
A couple. From Ireland, exactly. So we've had people converging. How many people have been to all 3 user space events? How many people is this your first user space event? So that's good. Welcome, welcome. So it looks like a quarter to a third of the folks are brand new, so it's terrific to see you here. Appreciate everybody coming. Similar to the tech board discussion in the end here, I'm just going to walk through a few slides in the beginning here. I will introduce these guys in a moment. I've got a slide for their names and faces and others, so we'll do that in a minute. And as they did with the tech board conversation, we're going to make this interactive overall. I do, however, want to start out with an additional welcome, a thank you. Tim O'Driscoll in the back, who kicked us off this morning, has worked tirelessly to make this happen. There's many other volunteers. Dave Hunt, yet again, is doing the camera work, recording sessions. You'll see John Mack and Mike Glenn and many others running around just helping out throughout the day. There's many other folks, Hemant and Bruce Richardson and others who helped out working through abstracts. So a round of applause for all those folks helping to make this event happen. The other thing, and I don't know if Tim mentioned this or not, but this year we had a record number of abstract submittals for this conference. So I want to thank everybody who did submit. I'll thank those in advance for the talks they're doing. Those of you who've been around long enough know that in years past we've had a little bit of, let's call it a challenge, getting people to proactively volunteer their abstracts. So it's great to see the tide has turned, that this year that's now happening where we now have more abstracts than we have slots to fill them. So we worked hard to consolidate topics when abstracts were similar, and then just had a cross committee to prioritize things and then suggest to those folks who didn't make it that they submit for DBK Summit USA, which is coming up. How many people are planning on going to San Jose for that event? Show of hands. Okay, so that's good. So we'll see a bunch of the same faces. Yeah, you guys are local, so it's easy. You just drive over, right? So if you haven't already, registration for that is now open. The call for participation, CFP, is on, I think, through October 3rd. But if you need a few more days, let us know, and please submit your abstracts for that as well. I will add that this year we've changed that event to have a registration fee to help us on a couple fronts. One, of course, is to make sure that when you register, you actually show up. That event, because it's in the Bay Area, we had a lot of people register and then no show, and that's a big problem for planning. It's $100 if you register early, and I think the rate goes up. So please register early, convince your colleagues to join, and submit proposals for that. So with that, what do you guys think about the hoodies? Everybody get their hoodie? And there should be stickers, I'm told, later on. So watch for stickers either this afternoon or tomorrow at the latest. Okay, so on with the show here, so to speak. Hopefully it'll advance a slide. Let's try. Next slide, please. There we go. Okay, so our project launched in April. So thank you to everybody who worked, I think, for at least 3 years to work through the community to figure out what we wanted to do. You know, we got the tech board in place quite a few years ago. And as you saw from the last conversation, they've really matured and come along. I think they're functioning extremely well. The project launched under the Linux Foundation this April. And through that, we recruited member companies. And with your member companies comes a board position. If you join at the gold tier, you get a seat on the governing board. If you join at the silver tier, you elected a rep for the governing board to represent the silver tier in there. These are I think it's 9 gold companies and 6 of the silver companies that are on here. George Zhao of Huawei represents the silver companies. Joining me on the stage today from right, Dave Neary from Red Hat. Erez Scope from Mellanox. Hemant Agrawal, you heard from earlier as well. He's doing double duty today. You heard the tech board, what they've decided to do, rather than say, hey, here's our one rep from the tech board on the governing board, they're rotating the position. So he's currently wearing that hat, but he also is wearing the NXP hat today as well because his colleague could not join us here. And lastly, I want to introduce Trishan. Trishan is the project manager from the Linux Foundation. So he helps us kind of work through tactical issues, when we need some help from the Linux Foundation, whether it's a purchase order to pay for this event through our budget, things like that, and a whole myriad of other tasks. He's been working us on the charter. He's been working on the open lab that's coming together at University of New Hampshire and a myriad of other issues. So thanks for all your help, Trishan. The rest of the board companies, we have board meetings, I'd say, every month or so. In the beginning, we had them every 2 weeks as we worked through the issues, and I'll talk in a minute about some of the things the board's been working on the last, I guess, 5 or so months here. So these are the board members. I'd say the vast majority of them make every call. I'll share with you why you don't see more of them here today. So those of you who've been here before know that this event is typically in mid to late October. And this year, here we are in September, and we're here, and we're not in San Jose, which we usually do in August or September. As we moved in, we had some schedule conflicts between spaces we could get in the Bay Area versus here, and we decided to swap the two events. So as a result of that, we had a series of conflicts for pretty much every week in September. And at the end of the day, we picked the best week that most of the tech board said they could make, and that's why we chose this week. But as a result, there is an event that conflicts called Linaro Connect that a lot of our board members and participants as well are at that event. So there's quite a few folks who were on our board call yesterday but are at that event today and couldn't join us here. But you'll see many of those if you do make it to San Jose in November for that, so please join us there. Okay, so next I'm going to walk through a couple of slides on, hey, what have you guys been doing the last couple of months? And I will preface that with calling myself guilty as charged for not being more proactive, sharing meeting minutes from the governing board. Unlike the technical board, the governing board meetings are not open to anyone and everyone. They are a closed session so the board can talk through, I'll call it knotty problems like budgets and other things that may be happening in the community, within the Linux Foundation, within the industry, etc. We publish meeting minutes then and share a summary of those minutes out with the community. And it's my job to help share those, and I haven't really done that very well. So guilty as charged. Hopefully you saw, I think it was last week, though, I did send out a summary of what we've been up to, and I'll walk through some of that today. And my promise to you is to try to be more proactive in sharing that information going forward. Okay, so the first thing we worked on as a board was the budget. So one of the fundamental reasons we moved the project in the Linux Foundation is to have a mechanism that we could gather funds from members and help share and support events and labs and marketing activities and infrastructure and any other thing that the community deemed important for our growth and existence and continuity going forward. So this was something that, we started out with less members than we have today, so we had less money. So we worked through, hey, how do we spend it and how do we prioritize it? We walked through the types of events we wanted to do around the world, both the DBDK Summit events, and those of you who may also have seen, we did a mini summit event at OPNFV Summit, and we'll continue to look at opportunities like that. There's currently some conversations around work with OVS conference that's coming up immediately after the DBDK Summit USA event, and we'll continue to do that. How many people are here working on the Open Lab project at University of New Hampshire? John Mack, who else? Tim? Erez, are you involved in it? Somebody from your team's involved, I think, no?
Yep.
I know there's a few folks. So the lab and the infrastructure for that Open Lab was the second priority for our budget that people talked about. So that's something that's going on. I don't know, do we have a talk or update on that, John, at all? Okay. Okay. So if you want an update on the lab, that's something that a lot of people in the community were asking for as the project came together, so you get an update on that. And then infrastructure and operations, right? How do we, where do we host both the website and the mailing list and everything else, right? Previously, 6Win hosted all that for us. As we moved the project into the LF, we moved that infrastructure over, I believe, to LF servers, if I'm not mistaken, right? So that's pretty much where the money goes. There's some tactical things, right? Keeping a little money in reserve for legal issues and challenges or discussions on licensing or things like that. Having some money in reserve just for other unforeseen circumstances that may come up. So just, I call it due diligence of our budget overall. So that's probably job number one for the board. Next slide. Okay, next is events. So on the left-hand side is kind of a list of events. So this year, the first two events are starred because DBDK Summit India and DBDK Summit China were run still by the core Intel team and funded by Intel. But going into next year, of course, those will now fall into DBDK project overall. And where's Heching? Heching is here in the front. Can you stand up for a second? Those of you who don't know Heching, he's out of our Shanghai office, and he's been instrumental the last 3 years now, I guess, right? Putting together DBDK Summit China. And that event has grown from a kind of small start to 300 people this year, roughly. So it's really taken on a life of its own. We get a tremendous presence from academia, equipment providers, software vendors, cloud providers, comm service providers, lots and lots of folks. So a pretty exciting event. And then this year there were other folks. I mean, Hemant, you were in India for the event we had there, as were others. And that event also is starting to develop a really great dynamic of this software community that happens to be in India that's very well engaged in networking and DBDK. So we will continue to build those kind of events out through the project this coming year, as well as supporting the user space event here and DBDK Summit event in the US. On the right-hand side, this only shows to 2016, but what I want to get across to you guys really is just the upward trajectory of the number of people we're reaching. This event, of course, is centric to the developers themselves, the people contributing to the code and using it directly. The other events tend to have a broader engagement, including people that are consuming the code. And as you guys all know, I'm sure there's probably, I'd bet at least 10x the number of people that consume the DBDK code than there are people that contribute to it. So part of your job is to go and convince more of them to contribute back into the community so we can continue to grow. The other thing I'd say is for 2018 goals, I mentioned a little bit of this, it's really grow the number of participants, grow the number of people, continue to spread the events out across the year, and continue to spread them out across the globe. So not everybody has time nor travel budgets to allow themselves to go and go to all these different events around the world. Is there anybody who's been to every event? I don't think so. Did anybody else in this room go to India? Okay, we got a couple anyways. All right, so that's not three people in the room from an India event. That's pretty good for us. Maybe I'll put that on my bucket list next year to get to all 4 DBDK events around the world. That would be we should have like a passport. You get it stamped at each event or something. But anyway, so we'll continue to do that. We'll also continue to look for opportunities at places like a OPNFV Summit or other events. If you guys ever have suggestions saying, hey, I know of this other event here, we should go and do something, do a workshop, have somebody give a talk, go do a mini summit, whatever, please let us know. You can reach out to any of the board members. There's a distribution list, of course, for that. I think it's govboard@dbdk.org or any other ways you guys want to reach out to us. So please let us know. We're open to suggestions and looking forward to them. Okay, last thing is kind of operational. So this is sort of the tactical side of running a project. And it's things as trivial as, small edits in the charter because somebody made a mistake when we created it, to more significant sections of the charter when someone comes up with a new idea that either needs to be added in or something needs to be removed or edited or whatnot. And then operational issues. We work constantly. Thomas does a fantastic job, as do others, helping out, updating the website. But we've had conversations about, today we've got dbdk.org, we've got dbdksummit.com. Do we bring these two together? Do we keep them separate? How can we improve the look and feel of our dbdk.org site to be more, let's call it, friendly to non-developers who are maybe just looking for more information? So those kind of things we work across the board and then recruit resources as well. So, in a nutshell, that's largely where the board's been spending their activities. The last thing I do want to say, and I mentioned this earlier, how there's lots more people that are consuming DBDK and actually in the community than there are member companies. What I'd ask of all of you is if you're here today and your company is not a member of the DBDK project, at least at a silver level, please talk to me, talk to Trishan, go back and talk to your company. I'd ask that you strongly consider joining the project. These events and the infrastructure of the project and the ability for us to do the lab, upcoming lab in University of New Hampshire, only exists because the project gets supported with some level of funding from the companies that are involved in the project. We've pushed this for probably as long as we could for free, getting people to chip in, and now we're asking people to step up, join the project, contribute at whatever level you can, and we greatly appreciate it. Okay, next up is just an interactive Q&A with the folks that are up here. Per Eric, he actually is here somewhere, but he's not feeling all that great this morning, so I think he went up to his room to lay down for a few minutes. You may see him back later on or tomorrow as well if we're lucky. But at this point, I'm going to open it up for Q&A. As in the last session, what we'd ask is raise your hand, and we'll get one of our mic runners to jump up and come over, hand you a mic, and ask your question, and we'll do our very best to answer it. Who wants to be first? Nobody, will be done quick. Who's our next speaker, Faru? Any questions from anyone
on events?
Or comments?
Well, on events, you mentioned all the events that we pay for, but I just wanted to call out, we've been doing a DPDK meetup near the Boston area, and I know we're not alone. So this is another example of where, growing the awareness of the DPDK community is not just the board's job, and it's something that costs money. It's something that you can do at a local basis as well. And we'd love to hear more about local meetups so that we can share that information and get more info out through the DPDK website. I know Thomas has been very helpful there too, and sharing information about events. So,
how many people went to the meetup yesterday, the OpenStack meetup? A couple of folks, not too many folks. So there's a group of folks, I think, sprinkled between our Shannon site and other folks in the Dublin area have been doing these OpenStack meetups for a few years, and they did one yesterday that I think had a pretty strong DPDK theme to it, with the opportunity of a lot of folks being in here. Like Dave mentioned, they started ones in Boston. There's a team of folks in Santa Clara that's a whole bunch of different companies that host the events there, and those typically get, I'd say 50 to 120-ish people. And they're starting to live stream those events too if you ever want to do it, and all the videos are posted. I know they tried one in India. Did you go to the first one in India they did? They did a DPDK, or what did they call it? Out-of-the-box Network Developer Summit or something like that. It's like an informal meetup event. So, same kind of thing. And if you guys are in a location where you're like, hey, I'd like to host a meetup event, come talk to us. We can get you together with the people who have done these before so you can get some ideas to try and go and implement. And again, help evangelize the project and what it's all about and opportunities for people to get engaged. Question in the back?
Okay. Yes. So it's great now we have a big budget to do a lot of things, if you understand well. Probably it would be good to review what can be done with this budget in details. Would you like to go back to the budget and explain?
Sure. So is your question where we're spending the money, or is your question where we might spend the money?
Both.
Both. So, when the project got created, the two biggest asks of the community were supporting events and supporting the lab. So that's where the majority of the money gets spent today. The other side of it, of course, is infrastructure. So how do you fund the mechanics of keeping the project going? So servers for it, whatever domain registration costs for renewing it, and any other additional expenditures or fees we might have. So that's where the majority of the money gets spent today, and our current projection is that's where it will get spent.
What is infrastructure expense? What is it, infrastructure?
I think maybe you can help me with that. Server costs.
Well, some of it's back office expenses, so like accounting, human resources, and that.
Right.
Side of it as well.
I mean, there is some overhead cost of joining the Linux Foundation as well, right? Off the top, there's a fee for any and every project that they host, which helps, some of the expenses they have of managing the Open Source Foundation or the Linux Foundation.
Okay, isn't it the same as GAA? Okay, excuse me, I'm confused. At the left there is a list, and at the right there is another one.
I think they're one and the same. So,
okay.
I think sales and operations, I think that's just operational support for things. Development, I think, is the lab infrastructure in total. Legal subtotal, I think, is more, that's more of a placeholder budget we have, and that was guidance from the legal team at the LF for things like export license compliance, project license reviews overall, and that's not money we've spent to date. We are going to do some license check on the project based on some feedback we've gotten actually from the tech board, so maybe you're involved in some of those conversations. But some of that money actually is reserve money that we're holding in case we need export license compliance or things of that nature. We've had a conversation on that. General administration, being part of it, probably covers the cost, of Trishan to help us out in the project. There's a portion of that we fund as well out of our project budget. Operations, I think, is, infrastructure and some of the other funds I mentioned earlier.
What is sales?
Say it again?
Sales.
Well, sales and operations, it's not really sales, it's more the operations side of it.
Okay. So about the legal department, it means now we can have some advices from legals. What is the exact service we can expect?
What is the legal element?
Yes.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, so there was a recommendation from the Linux Foundation legal team to have funds if we decided to do an export compliance check on the project code. And so far, we decided not to do that. So that was, I think, $25,000 it was going to be. So we have it in the budget, but we haven't spent it. So if we go through this year and have continued to say we don't need to do that, then we'll have that money carry over to next year. And so next year we'll have more money to spend and we can adjust the budget from there. There is an element, like I mentioned, that we're going to do from a license compliance in the project itself to go look through GPL and BSD and dual licensed and what have you across the project contributions to date.
Okay. So about export restriction, does it mean we can have some official guideline about export restrictions? Something we can advertise?
So if someone came up and said, yes, I'd like to make sure that our code is compliant to legal requirements around export licensing, that's really what that would be for. And correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Correct, yeah.
But so far, I went back to Intel and asked our lawyers, hey, do you think we as a project need to spend this money, or do you think the work that we as Intel contributors have done is adequate? And from an Intel legal perspective, they said it's adequate. So my view as an Intel board rep was, I don't need to spend that money. We had one other company who felt the same way. So we haven't had enough people come in and say, no, we really think we should go do that. But again, that's open for, these are decisions we make across the board as a team and not unilaterally. So the input came in to say, hey, we got guidance from the Linux Foundation to perhaps do this export license compliance legal audit, and we as a board decided not to do it. The money is still in the budget, so we could do it if we change our mind. But again, if we get through our first year and everyone's comfortable not doing it, we could move that money aside to spend it doing something else.
Okay, and an important question about the legal department. I think we should have a process to know how to ask a question to legals. Is there a specific email address, or should we ask to the technical board and the technical board relays the question to the legals? What is the process?
For legal questions?
Yes.
I guess I'd suggest that you probably, bring them up to the governing board, and we'll probably route them. I would route it through Trishan, who would then go and talk to the legal counsel at the Linux Foundation. But again, that's one of the things. So our relationship with the Linux Foundation is a pay-for service. And as I mentioned, this is a service that we put in the budget that we haven't elected to use. So if we come up with a legal question and we say, hey, we want to either ask some lawyers, have them go evaluate this and give us back a decision, you can do that. But as with legal counsel for yourself personally, you have to go pay for that. So if you have a requirement, by all means, whether it's legal or otherwise, please bring it to the attention of someone on the governing board or to a tech board rep and have them bring it in, because again, we always have a tech board rep on the governing board. And we're happy to entertain any of the questions and decide whether it's something the board will elect to pursue and allocate some money to fund.
Okay, thank you. It makes things clear. Maybe it's something to explain on the website.
I'm sorry, say it again?
I'm saying maybe we should explain on the website this process that we must ask to the governing board before asking to the Linux Foundation.
Yeah, we could add that easy enough, sort of how to get your community questions answered that are of a, let's call it non-technical nature, whether they're project specific, and how to escalate them through. Yeah, we could define that.
Okay, thank you.
And if it's related to a technical project, it should come through the tech board. So the tech board can make the recommendation that they need legal counsel from the board. Well.
Okay. Any other questions? Hold on, I'll grab you a microphone. Coming.
Here it comes. Thank you. I just wanted to, it seems like that there's some opportunities for the networking projects. I know I work a lot in VPP these days.
Right.
And the networking projects to share some kind of resources in LF. I see it through CSIT perhaps and development resources and some of the problems that are unique to networking, like planning for servers, testing interfaces, and our need for interfaces when we're trying to do, 23 million packets per second are probably shared between DPDK and VPP, or should be. Just different things that are could, from a technical perspective, there might be some opportunities for sharing the resources, knowledge, expertise, and so on among these open source projects in LF. Just wanted to bring that out there.
Yes, so there's been a lot of conversation for several years, and if you go to, if you've been to an Open Network Summit event or others, if you heard, Arpit Jashpura, who's the VP of Networking for networking projects in the Linux Foundation, he's brought this up. Dave Ward for Cisco, I think, a year or two ago at an event, brought up the same concept. Hey, how do we go and fix this? There's been a significant effort already around some of the big/expensive LF projects like ONAP and OPNFV and others that have six-figure membership fees instead of 4 or 5-figure membership fees. And there's active work amongst them to try to do some consolidation. From our project perspective, what we've done is continue to reach out to other projects where it makes sense. So there's clearly engagements across OVS and DBDK. There's engagements across FIDO and DBDK. To a lesser degree, there's some work in OPNFV with DBDK, Fast Data Stacks? I guess that's a FIDO one with a DBDK element to it, right?
VSPerf. VSPerf as well.
VSPerf, right? So there are some synergies. I think to your point, there's probably always opportunity for more. I will say, and I'll let, if anyone wants to speak, the people that were on the DBDK lab team looked at options that included using LF infrastructure, using FIDO infrastructure, and using other alternatives. And they made the decision at the end of the day to go with University of New Hampshire versus those other options. So they did explore them, but they made a decision for a variety of reasons to go a different route. I think we do need to continue to look for those opportunities. Whether it makes sense, how we work with those projects, is it just collaborative engagements or is it something tighter than that? I think that's open for discussion and engagement across the entire community. What I'd suggest though is don't wait for the board to do that for you. If you have some ideas, if you see something, tell somebody on the tech board, tell somebody in the governing board, make a suggestion of what you think we should do, and we can go and look into it. We're all volunteers, right, with day jobs.
I know.
Like everyone here, right? Other questions? What else would you like to see the governing board do? Anything? Are we not doing something you expected us to do or hoped that we would do? Grab Martin on the microphone.
About getting more membership and also increasing the relevance of DPDK as the networking and infrastructure, the networking requirement sort of evolves and changes. I'm particularly thinking of the sort of container evolution.
Right.
And have you thought about participating in any sort of events there where we actually show the relevance of DPDK in those environments and try to encourage people to develop and use DPDK in those environments and not just think of it as purely a bare metal environment?
Yeah, so I think your question was how do we showcase like implementation models like containers and others? I'd say 5 ideas go through my head as you ask that question. The first one will be, okay, so we do something with Open Container Initiative, to go do something at, Cloud Native Computing Foundation runs KubeCon, and what do they call it? Cloud Native Con, I think, right? Yeah. So, do we go do a mini summit at that kind of event and bring some of our work into there? That's possible. Do we go and create, there's another discussion we've had that we haven't done anything with yet, that's around marketing beyond just events. Right, most of what we've done has either been DBDK Summit events or mini summits. And we've done some workshops as well. We haven't gotten to the point where you say, hey, let's go write a standard how to use DBDK white paper and put it up on our website. Let's go write some implementation models, right? DBDK implementations and containers and put that on our website. We haven't done those kind of things. We could. So if people say, hey, number one, we think the project should spend some money on this. Number two, either we have some resources that are going to raise their hand and volunteer, or we'll go and spend some more money to pay some people to go and be tech writers for this. We could do all those things. What we need are people to say, yeah, I'd like to be involved and help do this. Containers topic is interesting because yesterday, at least a few of us on this team had the same thought and topic about it because, we think there's more work we could be doing around containers. There's certainly more of a story I think we can tell around containers. So anybody else interested in containers here? Okay, so there's our volunteers. Let's get them all together later. During the next break, we'll have a little small meeting. But we could do something there, but like everything else, people need to raise their hand and say, yes, I think we should do this. Enough people need to second it and want to get involved, and then we'll form a team. I mean, everything that we've done so far, putting on this event involves a small team of folks to do it. Getting together to work through a budget, right? John Bromhead, huge kudos to him. He worked through the budget details over and over and spent a lot of time going through them. It looks simple when you go put a chart up, but when you're in the thrust of it and having the debates and arguments about where you're going to spend the money, how much you have, how much you want to spend, how much you want to save, all that takes time, effort, and work. And we just need people with ideas to raise their hand enough to organize a small team of folks and decide to take it on.
One other question is, on the website, there are some links to some third-party vendors that do training. Have we thought about like certified programs or anything like that? So, I mean, I'm not sure what the content of some of that training is. And
you mean like DBDK certified or something?
Or, yeah, I'm just wondering, is there any, are those just sort of links and then it's up to whoever wants to go out and research? Pick and choose.
Yeah, so I'll give you my recollection of the origins of those, and I'll ask Thomas to correct me if I'm wrong. In the early DBDK days, we had some companies that were looking to use it that said, hey, if I need some help, who do I go to? So there are a few companies that raised their hand. I think at the beginning it was 6Win, Wind River, and CalSoft, who said, hey, yeah, we do professional services work on DBDK, put us in there. And I think there may be more today without looking, I don't remember. I couldn't tell you today if that list is still accurate. I couldn't tell you today what those companies offer, but their names and links are up there with the idea that if you're someone who doesn't want to roll your own and you want to go hire somebody, here's a place you can go look on some companies.
Yeah, I'm just looking for developers for jump-starting, that's all. Again, increasing the pool, that was what I was
Right. Yeah, I think, could we do something there? Probably. I think the first thing probably would be to refresh and say, hey, so, to Thomas's question earlier on sort of refreshing website for other thing, like how do you get a question answered? Maybe we go and look at that from a, I'll call it professional services or accelerating your starts or whatever, and go and look at that material and decide, well, does this reflect our reality today? Does this reflect the easiest path to get started, right? So could you have DBDK Kickstart thing, right? There's folks in here, Dave Hunt and Jim Thompson and others who created DBDK in a box. And that was designed, again, to give somebody a simple turnkey kit with some instructions and software. You'd put the thing together and you'd go from I don't know anything to, okay, I got it up and running very quickly and easily. Those kind of things are designed to accelerate adoption overall. Could we do more? I'm sure. Where should we spend it on? Open to suggestions.
No, I wasn't complaining. I was just,
okay.
Again.
Yep. Thanks. Other questions?
Yeah. About courses and support, the companies able to provide support or courses are listed on the website. You told some of them. Now there's also semi-half doing some courses with an instructor. But the question is, how do we certify the companies doing such services? Is it the role of the governing board to say, okay, we agree you are able to do this kind of service, and we list your name on the website?
So we haven't had a conversation on that, so I'd say, I don't know if people have thoughts or opinions on, like training courses that we'd list on our website, or like an official DBDK training course, you mean?
No, I'm asking, how do we certify that the companies listed as able to do it are really able to do it?
Really able to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, today I'm pretty sure we don't. I think we get names listed on there, but we don't necessarily do anything to certify that they have the capability. We take it at face value. So, maybe the counter question to that is, should we do something there? I don't know.
It's a sticky subject. The cost of doing it tends to be expensive, and the value of having a kind of a DPDK label is questionable, I think. I'm all for, encouraging more and more people to give training courses, and essentially having a very low bar to getting on that website would be my opinion. As a community /
You can put together a small working group to explore this question. I want to do that.
So I have some questions for the group. Are there things that we should be doing? One thing that came to mind during the earlier session and also during this one is there was a question of how do we make DPDK more user-driven? And my immediate question was, do we know who our users are? And is there an opportunity for us to have something like a user advisory group where we specifically ask people who we know are kind of architect level or developer level users of DPDK, what are you doing? What do you want? What are the use cases? Is that something like that just came to mind to me? But what should we be doing? We're essentially, as a governing board, we're serving the DPDK community and administering a budget. And so how do we do those things better? We've talked about the budget. Let's talk about serving the community a little bit better. Silence. I guess we're doing a good job.
How much do you know about the demographic of the users and the typical use case that fits the DPDK model and the percentage of market share? I mean, for companies to invest, that would be a typical question, I think.
Yeah, so there's a question of, hey, who are the people out in the world and what are the demographics of the people using, implementing, and deploying DPDK, right? How do we know what who did the survey last year? Mike Lynn, where's Mike Lynn? And I think Deepak, you're doing the survey this year. So we have the survey that's up. How many people in this room have filled out the survey?
If I can add something from China,
okay.
I have a DPDK WeChat social group. Right now we have about 3,000 developers following this technical group. And we kind of publish a Chinese version website. And then because this is more like geo-specific, we are able to build up a developer location. And then we kind of can survey and understand those developers, if that's what can help the governing board understand the user and the applications and who are really using this. But in my personal opinion, it's like cloud telco are the majority user of DPDK today.
Yeah, I think the question is, and skip ahead to what Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're after is a little more delineation on who the users are, right? Who are the people, where does it get used, where does it get applied? Cloud and telecom, I think, is probably the right generic ballparks, but okay, what kind of applications, right? Are they firewalls or appliances or BNGs or what have you, right? I don't know that we have much direct visibility on that. I think across the community, people that are engaged with customers probably know how it's being used within their own companies and their own work that they're doing. I think it'd be very interesting. We'll see what comes out of Deepak's next survey. I think, are you sharing that at the USA event? Okay. So maybe come, mid-November, we'll get a little more insights based on what he sees. But again, the reason I asked who filled out the survey, we've posted it a few times. We need people to promote to others, because if the people that are the end users don't get to it and fill it out, then you'll never know, right? And if it just turns out being that the people in this room fill out the survey, then it's kind of a biased view as well. So we'll see how far we get. We're about out of time, huh? Any final questions?
Okay. I think my answer will partially answer from previous discussion. I mean, actually, they were discussing on roadmap, wish list, like user cases already. My question is, how does the government board play a role to define this long-term direction or roadmap for DPDK? Do you regularly...
From a technical perspective?
Yes, I believe that you should have some discussion in the governing board too, right? Maybe you gather some requirement from member companies, have a discussion with some key stakeholders, at least you review a roadmap or release plan from technical board.
Well, so what I'd say, so from a technical roadmap perspective, that is absolutely not the purview of the governing board. We leave that to the community in general and the technical board to go and put that together and say, hey, here's what our roadmap looks like, and it's posted on the website. From a project roadmap per se, that's an interesting question. We as a board, we haven't really put together any kind of strategic board roadmap of where the project's going. We did have conversation around growing the project, which is why I put my little plug in here of, hey, if you haven't joined, please join. If you know other companies who should join, please get them to join. The comments earlier from Stephen and others about what we should do to grow the project and look for synergies with other projects is a good, perhaps that's an aspirational goal we put out. I don't know, what do you guys think? Should we try to build some kind of strategic roadmap or goals for the project?
Not at a technical level, but yes.
No, not at a technical level, more at what do we try to do with the project?
How do we use our resources better? I think we should.
Right.
I think
how do we grow the project?
Right.
Yep. I think on Dave's point about user groups, we do have a lot of obvious consumers of DPDK out there, like OVS DPDK, OpenContrail, VPP, and DPDK ANS. There's FStack. There's a bunch of them I could think about off the top of my head. And the bug tracking system, the Bugzilla, is the most obvious place that we have to interface with those. But my sense is that our interaction with those communities is still very informal. It is sometimes a bit of hit and miss. And I often see that the patches that we see in things like MoonGen for DPDK, for me are asymptomatic, that we probably have more work to do to reach out to those communities and say, okay, why are you patching DPDK and why aren't you coming and telling us about these problems, like what's the deficit there? So I think you're right, there probably is more work to do to probably reach out to those communities to say, how can we help?
Okay, I think that was more of a comment than a question, right? All right. I think we're going to wrap it up there because I know we're 2 minutes over. Apologies for that. I would like to thank our board members that are here and the ones that weren't able to make it. These guys do spend a fair bit of time trying to guide things behind the scenes. It's not nearly as obvious to the community as tech board activities because they're not in the developer mailing list, but they are working for the project, and I appreciate all the work you guys do. Thank you. Thanks.